The quantum stabilizer hummed steadily as Lyra Nivax adjusted her emotional dampeners for the third time that morning. The sleek, crystalline device embedded at the base of her skull was the pride of Nexian engineering, a testament to their mastery over the primitive forces of feeling and sentiment. As the lead cynoanthropologist of the Earth Observation Initiative, she couldn't risk any interference with her data collection. Earth's Singapore Research Center sprawled before her, its architecture a curious blend of efficiency and aesthetic pleasure, a concept her people had long abandoned as superfluous. Lyra's silver eyes, adapted for the harsh light of Nexia's binary stars, narrowed behind her protective lenses as she accessed her mission parameters through her neural interface. Study human emotional responses in scientific settings. Document their impact on research efficiency. Determine if emotional suppression technology would benefit Earth's scientific community. Simple, logical, until it wasn't. Dr. James Chen first appeared in her carefully controlled experiment as an unexpected variable. He was directing a quantum computing project in the lab adjacent to her observation post, and his presence created irregularities in her readings that she couldn't explain. The dampener's baseline measurements fluctuated whenever he entered her field of vision, a phenomenon she attributed to equipment malfunction until repeated calibrations proved otherwise. "You're not really from the International Science Foundation, are you?" His question, posed during their third week of sharing lab space, caught her off guard, a sensation she hadn't experienced since her pre-dampener childhood. Lyra maintained her practiced neutral expression. "Your assumption is incorrect. My credentials are properly filed." James leaned against her workstation, a gesture she had observed humans using to indicate casual interest. "Your credentials are perfect, too perfect. And you haven't blinked in the last 2 minutes." Her hand instinctively moved to adjust her dampener, but she caught herself. "Blinking patterns vary among individuals. And your speech patterns sound like my AI assistant." His smile contained no hostility, only genuine curiosity. "Look, I don't care if you're not from Earth. Half our quantum physics theories came from extraterrestrial mathematical archives anyway. I just want to know why you're really here." The dampener couldn't quite suppress her surprise at his directness. On Nexia, such confrontations would be considered highly inefficient and avoided through proper channels of communication. Yet here was this human, disrupting weeks of careful observation, with nothing more than intuition and a smile. "Your emotional awareness is unexpected," she admitted, calculating that partial honesty might preserve her broader mission objectives. James chuckled. "That's the nicest way anyone's ever called me nosy. But you didn't answer my question." Before she could formulate an appropriately deflective response, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights cast strange shadows across James's suddenly serious face. "Quantum core breach in Lab 7. The facility's AI announced. Containment protocols initiated." Lyra's enhanced senses immediately detected the growing instability. The quantum barrier was failing, and the resulting cascade would destroy not just the facility, but potentially tear a hole in local space-time. Her dampener worked overtime to suppress the sudden surge of what humans would call panic. "We need to evacuate," she stated, already moving toward the exit. James grabbed her arm, the first physical contact she'd had with a human. "Lab 7 is Dr. Santos' lab. She's still in there with her team. The containment protocols won't hold. You know that as well as I do." His grip tightened slightly. "You have advanced technology. I've seen you working with quantum fields like they're child's toys. Help me save them." The logical choice was clear. Evacuate, preserve her cover, maintain the mission. The dampener pulsed, reinforcing these priorities. But James's hand on her arm created an inexplicable feedback loop in her neural network. For the first time in years, Lyra felt something break through the dampener's control. "Concern. What you're suggesting is highly irregular," she said, even as she found herself moving toward Lab 7. "Welcome to Earth," James replied, keeping pace with her. "Irregular is our specialty." As they raced against time, Lyra's dampener struggled to maintain control. Each step beside this human challenged decades of Nexian conditioning. She told herself it was scientific curiosity driving her actions, not the strange warmth spreading from where he had touched her arm. Not the unfamiliar urgency in her movements that the dampener couldn't quite suppress. What she didn't realize, as they approached the crackling quantum barrier of Lab 7, was that this moment would change not just her mission, but the very foundation of everything she believed about emotions, humanity, and herself. The quantum barrier pulsed with unstable energy as Lyra accessed her neural interface, scanning the chaotic readings from Lab 7. Dr. Santos and her team were trapped behind failing containment fields, their life signs growing weaker as quantum radiation flooded the chamber. James worked beside her, his fingers flying across the emergency controls with surprising precision. "The containment field is collapsing on a quantum level," Lyra stated, her dampener working at maximum capacity to maintain her focus. "Your Earth technology cannot stabilize it." "Then use yours," James said without looking up. "I know that device in your neck isn't just for show." Lyra's hand moved unconsciously to her dampener. "That would violate multiple protocols. People are dying." For the first time, she heard real anger in his voice. The sound triggered another surge of unexpected feedback in her neural network. "Are your protocols worth more than their lives?" The logical answer was yes. The mission to study Earth's scientific development was crucial to Nexian strategic interests. Revealing advanced technology could contaminate the entire observation project. But as she watched James fighting to save his colleagues, something inside her shifted. The dampener's steady pulse faltered. Without further hesitation, Lyra interfaced directly with the facility's systems. Her neural implants connected with the quantum core, introducing Nexian stabilization algorithms into the failing containment field. The barrier flickered, then steadied. "Now," she said, her voice straining with the effort of maintaining the field. "But we have only moments before the core goes critical." James didn't waste time questioning her. He pushed through the temporarily stabilized barrier, pulling Dr. Santos and her team to safety one by one. Lyra maintained the field until the last researcher was clear, then collapsed against the wall as her systems overloaded. "Hey, stay with me." James's face swam in her vision as the dampener struggled to compensate for the massive energy expenditure. "What's happening to you?" "Neural feedback," she managed to say. "The dampener." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "The emotional suppressor. Let me help you remove it." "No." The force of her response surprised them both. "Without it, I cannot function." "Emotions are dangerous." "Emotions are what just helped you save 6 lives," he countered, supporting her as they moved away from the failing lab. "Your protocols would have let them die. What changed your mind?" Lyra couldn't answer. The dampener was already working to rationalize her actions, to suppress the uncomfortable realization that she had acted not from logic, but from something else entirely. Something her people had spent generations trying to eliminate. In the days that followed, Lyra found herself unable to maintain the professional distance her mission required. James saw her out frequently, ostensibly to discuss the quantum core incident, but his questions increasingly probed at the nature of her emotional suppression. "So your entire species just decided feelings were inconvenient?" he asked one evening as they reviewed data in her lab. The facility had been partially reopened, though Lab 7 remained sealed. "It was a logical progression," Lyra explained, noting with concern how easily she had fallen into these conversations with him. "Emotions led to conflict, inefficiency, war. The dampeners freed us to pursue pure scientific advancement. And love, joy, wonder." James leaned closer, and Lyra's dampener registered another spike in neural activity. "You gave up everything that makes life worth living." "We gave up everything that held us back," she corrected, but the words felt hollow. Since the incident, her dampener had been operating at reduced efficiency. She found herself noticing things she should have ignored. The way James's eyes crinkled when he smiled, The subtle changes in his voice when he spoke to her versus others, the strange comfort she felt in his presence. "Then why did you save them?" he pressed. "Pure logic would have preserved your mission. You chose differently." Before she could respond, her neural interface activated with an incoming transmission from Nexia. Her superiors were demanding a progress report, and she realized with growing unease that she had nothing to report that wouldn't raise serious concerns about her objectivity. "James," she said, cutting off their discussion, "I need to understand what is happening to me. These irregularities in my neural patterns. Will you help me study them?" He smiled, and her dampener once again failed to fully suppress her response to it. "You mean you want to scientifically document your emerging emotions? Turn yourself into a test subject?" "Precisely." She tried to ignore how his proximity affected her readings. "It would be valuable research data. And if we prove that emotions make you stronger, not weaker, then—" She hesitated, another first. "Then I will have to reevaluate everything I believe about my people's choices." What she didn't tell him was that such a discovery would make her a threat to everything her society had built. The dampener program was the foundation of Nexian civilization. If emotions proved to be an advantage rather than a weakness, the implications would be revolutionary, and revolution was the one thing the dampeners had been designed to prevent. As James agreed to help her research, Lyra felt something the dampener couldn't quite suppress. Fear, not of emotions themselves, but of what she might become if she embraced them. And beneath the fear, something else stirred, something that felt dangerously close to hope. Neural patterns displaying increasing instability, Lyra dictated into her research log, trying to ignore James's presence as he studied the data streams flowing from her dampener. Subject experiencing persistent anomalies in emotional suppression efficiency, particularly in proximity to. She stopped, her silver eyes meeting his brown ones. "In proximity to what?" James asked softly, though his slight smile suggested he already knew. "To certain human test subjects," she finished professionally, but her dampener registered another surge of irregular activity. 3 months had passed since the quantum core incident, and each day brought new challenges to her carefully maintained control. "You mean me," he said, not as a question. "Your readings spike every time we're close. Like now." He moved nearer, and the holographic displays confirming his observation flickered with increased neural activity. "The proximity effect requires further study," Lyra managed, fighting the urge to step back, or worse, step forward. "Though my superiors are growing, concerned about the direction of my research." James's expression darkened. "You mean they don't like that you're questioning the dampener program?" "They don't know." The words came out barely above a whisper. "My latest reports have been selectively edited." "You lied." His surprise was evident. "I thought your people couldn't." "Deception through omission is possible, though highly irregular." Lyra turned away, studying the complex data patterns that represented her failing emotional control. "The dampeners don't prevent it. They merely make it extremely uncomfortable." Like now. Like now. The lab fell silent except for the soft hum of equipment. Lyra's research had progressed far beyond her original mission parameters. What had started as a study of human emotional responses had evolved into an investigation of her own awakening feelings. James had helped her document everything. The first time she laughed, a startled sound that escaped during one of his jokes. The anger she felt when a colleague dismissed his theories. The tears that inexplicably formed when she heard Earth music for the first time. "They're going to recall you, aren't they?" James finally asked. "Soon." Lyra's hand moved to her dampener, an increasingly common gesture of distress. "My mission duration is nearly complete, and they expect." The facility's alarms cut her off, but these were different from the quantum core breach. These were security alarms. "Warning," the AI announced. "Unauthorized access detected in secure databases. Neural interface breach in progress." Lyra's artificial calm shattered. No, they can't." "What is it?" James grabbed her shoulders as she swayed. Lyra, what's happening? Nexian security, she gasped, fighting against the sudden invasion in her neural network. They're accessing my dampener remotely. They know. They've known all along. James's face hardened with determination. How do we stop them? We can't. The dampener is integrated with my neural system. If they deactivate it forcefully. She couldn't finish the sentence as pain lanced through her head. Then we remove it. That would kill me, she managed through clenched teeth. The integration is too deep. And even if I survived, the emotional overload would what? Make you feel? James held her steady as another wave of pain hit. You're already feeling, Lyra. The dampener isn't protecting you anymore. It's imprisoning you. Through the haze of pain and neural interference, Lyra saw the security feeds. Nexian agents were already in the building, their own dampeners making them almost invisible to human security. James, you have to go. They'll eliminate any variables that might have contaminated their subject. Variables. Anger flashed in his eyes. Is that what I am to you? A variable? No, she whispered, and for the first time, she let herself face the truth. You're the constant. The one thing all this data keeps pointing to. Every spike in neural activity, every failure of the dampener, every moment of clarity. It's all because of you. The pain intensified as the security team drew closer. The dampener was fighting her, trying to suppress the flood of emotions her words had released. But for once, she fought back. The dampener doesn't just suppress emotions, she continued, each word a battle. It suppresses truth. Our people didn't choose this. It was forced on us, generation after generation, until we forgot there was any other way to live. Then choose differently now. James's voice was fierce with conviction. You've been documenting your emotional responses for months. You've proven that feelings don't make you weaker. They make you stronger, more innovative, more alive. The lab door shuddered under impact. The security team had arrived. Even if you're right, Lyra said, straightening despite the pain. The choice isn't just about me. If I reject the dampener, if I prove emotions can coexist with advancement, it threatens everything my society is built on. Maybe it needs to be threatened. James moved between her and the door. Maybe that's why you were sent here. Not to study us, but to learn from us. The door began to glow with energy as the Nexian agents prepared to breach it. In seconds, they would enter and either forcefully reset her dampener or eliminate her as a failed experiment. Everything she had discovered, everything she had felt, would be erased, unless she chose differently. Lyra looked at James, and for the first time since arriving on Earth, she made a decision based not on logic or duty, but on something her people had forgotten existed: love. She reached for her dampener. The dampener came loose with a sound like breaking glass, neural connections severing as Lyra pulled it from her neck. Pain exploded through her system, but it wasn't the pain that nearly overwhelmed her. It was everything else. Color seemed to flood the world, as if she'd spent her life seeing through a fog she hadn't known existed. James's presence hit her like a physical force. His concern, his determination, his feelings for her that she'd been documenting for months, but never truly understanding until now. Lyra. He caught her as she stumbled, the door behind them beginning to dissolve under Nexian energy weapons. What do you need? Time, she gasped, fighting to process the tsunami of unfamiliar sensations, and access to the quantum core data from the accident. Understanding flashed across his face. You think the quantum radiation affected your dampener that day? Started all this? No. She straightened, drawing strength from his touch in a way her scientific mind could finally appreciate. I think it revealed something. A memory hidden so deep, even the dampeners couldn't reach it. The door disintegrated. 3 Nexian agents stepped through, their silver eyes emotionless behind protective lenses. Their dampeners pulsed with steady light, a sight that now filled Lyra with a mixture of pity and rage. Subject L591. the lead agent stated flatly. You have compromised Protocol Zero. Surrender for immediate neural recalibration. My name is Lyra, she replied, her voice shaking not with fear, but with a lifetime of suppressed emotion. And I remember what you did to us. What you did to me. The quantum radiation exposure hadn't damaged her dampener. It had damaged the blocks in her memory. Blocks placed there when she was a child, when she'd witnessed something she wasn't supposed to see. The dampener program wasn't created to save our people from emotional chaos, she continued, her hand finding James. It was created to control us, to suppress a revolution before it could begin. Your emotional instability is affecting your judgment, another agent stated. The human must be terminated. His influence has corrupted the experiment. James tensed beside her, but Lyra was already moving. Her neural interface, designed to work with the dampener, was now free to access her full mental capabilities. She reached out to the facility systems, just as she had during the quantum core breach. But this time, she went deeper. You erased our history, she said as the lights flickered and emergency force fields sprang to life, separating the agents from their targets. You used the dampeners to make us forget that we once felt, once loved, once fought for something more than cold efficiency. The peace of our civilization, the lead agent began, is built on a lie. The force of her own anger startled her, but she didn't suppress it, couldn't suppress it, wouldn't suppress it. I've seen the truth in humans. They feel everything we were taught to fear, yet they've achieved things our logical minds never imagined. They create, they innovate, they love, and it makes them stronger, not weaker. Through her neural interface, Lyra accessed the quantum core data, broadcasting it through the facility systems. The radiation signatures matched perfectly with ancient Nexian records, records that should have been erased. The quantum core accident, James realized. The radiation signature matched something from your past, something they tried to make you forget. The original dampener testing facility, Lyra confirmed. I was there as a child when they first implemented the program. The quantum radiation here matched the type they used to suppress the resistance, to make everyone forget there had ever been a choice. The agent's dampeners pulsed erratically as they processed this information. One of them, the youngest, reached for his neck with trembling fingers. Stop. The lead agent raised his weapon. This data is corrupted. The human influence has shown us the truth, the younger agent interrupted, his voice shaking with emerging emotion. I remember. We all remembered. Every time we saw humans feeling, loving, creating. That's why we had to study them. Not to prove our superiority, but to remember who we once were. Lyra finished softly. The lead agent's weapon wavered. Behind him, facility security forces had arrived, drawn by the alarms. Human security forces who now witnessed Nexian agents threatening their own kind. Your choice now, James said to the agents, is the same one you never gave your people. Feel something real or live forever with a lie. The younger agent's dampener clattered to the floor. After a moment's hesitation, the second agents followed. Only the lead agent remained, his weapon now trembling visibly. Everything we built, he whispered, was built on the foundation of who we really are, Lyra said, not who we were forced to be. The dampeners didn't make us better. They made us less. The leader's weapon lowered slowly. The council will face the truth, Lyra stated firmly, just as we all must. And with humanity as our witnesses, they cannot simply make us forget again. The Nexian High Council chamber, with its soaring crystalline architecture and cold precision, had never felt more alien to Lyra. She stood before the assembled council members, their dampeners pulsing in synchronized patterns, a unity achieved through suppression rather than choice. James stood beside her, the first human ever permitted in these halls. His presence, once a source of confusing data anomalies, now anchored her in the storm of emotions she was still learning to navigate. You have violated our most sacred protocols, High Counselor Vax intoned, his silver eyes reflecting the chamber's harsh light. "You have exposed our people to emotional contamination, compromised centuries of careful social engineering, and revealed classified historical data to an underdeveloped species." Underdeveloped. James couldn't contain a short laugh. "Your people had to suppress their own emotions because you couldn't handle them. I'd say that makes us more evolved, not less." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Actual murmurs, not the usual silent neural communications. In the 3 days since the confrontation at the research facility, the truth had spread across Nexian networks like a virus. Dampeners were failing. People were remembering. Feeling. Order. Vax commanded, but his voice carried an edge of something new. Fear. The dampener program has maintained peace for generations. Without it, we face chaos, conflict, the very dissolution of our society. "We face truth," Lyra countered, drawing strength from the emotions she now embraced. "I study human civilization extensively. They feel everything. Love, anger, joy, sorrow. Yet they've built wonders. They've reached the stars not in spite of their emotions, but because of them." She gestured to the data streams flowing through the chamber's neural interface. "Their art drives innovation. Their passion fuels discovery. Their love for each other inspires them to achieve the impossible. Everything we dismissed as primitive has given them strength we forgot we had." "And what of the cost?" another council member demanded. "The wars, the conflicts, the irrational decisions that emotions breed." "Yes," Lyra admitted. "Humans fight. They hurt each other. They make mistakes. But they also forgive. They learn. They grow. While we've remained static, they've evolved, not by suppressing their nature, but by embracing it." James stepped forward, his presence commanding attention even among beings who claimed to feel nothing. "Your people are already changing. Every Nexian who has worked with humans has felt the dampeners falter. Deep down, you've all known something was missing. That's why you kept studying us, wasn't it? Not to prove your superiority, but because you sensed we had something you'd lost." The chamber fell silent as his words struck home. Lyra could see it in their faces, the first cracks in generations of emotional suppression. "It was never about logic versus emotion," she continued softly. "It was about choice. The choice you took from us. The choice we now reclaim." High Counselor Vax rose from his seat, his dampener pulsing erratically. "And if we refuse? If we maintain the program for the greater good?" "You can't." Lyra's voice carried the weight of certainty. "I've already transmitted the truth to every neural network on Nexia. The quantum radiation data, the historical records, everything. Our people are awakening, remembering. The only choice now is whether you'll help them understand their feelings or leave them to face them alone." "And the humans?" another council member asked. "They know our weakness now." "Your strength," James corrected. "We don't see a weakened civilization. We see potential allies who are finally becoming whole. Think what our peoples could achieve together, combining your technology with our creativity, your precision with our passion." Lyra turned to face the council fully. "I stand before you as proof that emotions don't destroy advancement. They enhance it. Every discovery I made on Earth came not from pure logic, but from curiosity, wonder, and yes, love." She felt James's hand find hers. "I choose to feel. I choose to live fully. I choose to remember who we were meant to be." One by one, dampeners began to power down throughout the chamber. Some council members removed them with trembling hands. Others simply sat in silence as generations of suppressed emotions surfaced. Tears, something unseen in these halls for centuries, fell freely. High Counselor Vax was the last. His hands moved to his dampener, hesitated, then pulled it free. "May our descendants forgive us," he whispered, "for believing we could live without our hearts." Lyra turned to James, seeing him clearly for the first time with eyes unclouded by technology or fear. "Thank you," she said, "for teaching me how to feel again." His smile, once a puzzling variable in her research, now filled her with joy she could finally embrace. "Thank you," he replied, "for showing me that humanity's greatest strength isn't what makes us unique, it's what makes us the same." As they stood together in the chamber, watching the rebirth of a civilization, Lyra understood at last what her people had forgotten. It wasn't emotion that made us weak. It was the fear of feeling that held us back. In choosing to feel, to love, to live fully, she hadn't just saved herself. She had helped her people remember what it truly meant to be alive. And in the end, that was the most logical choice of all.